Nikkei Asia News Roundup
with Jada and Brian. Welcome to the Nikkei Asia News Roundup with your hosts, Jada and Brian.
bringing you the latest updates and insights on the dynamic world of Asia and more.
Now let's delve into the headlines. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.
Malaysia is pushing forward with an ambitious plan to overhaul its aging urban landscape through a redevelopment bill. But concerns about overdevelopment and homeowners' fear of displacement are already testing public confidence in the initiative.
Some of Japan's biggest companies are helping employees achieve doctoral degrees, taking matters into their own hands in a country where such talent is becoming harder to find.
Indonesia's pearl exports have gradually rebounded since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the sector globally, making it the world's third largest exporter after Japan and Australia. But the pace of Indonesia's rebound is lagging its main rivals, causing its share of the global pearl market to slip from nearly a fifth in 2019 to just a tenth in 2023.
Thailand, Malaysia, and other Southeast Asian countries are moving to introduce carbon taxes in an effort to combat climate change and encourage domestic companies to decarbonize and increase their competitiveness.
Businesses in Singapore and Japan are bucking the back-to-the-office trend as attitudes toward hybrid working diverge across Asia, according to a survey that found fewer than 2/5 of professionals in the two countries spend their entire work week in the office.
Sri Lanka lifted its vehicle import ban last month after 5 years, a key step in its debt-saddled post-crisis recovery. But experts warn that steep taxes could make car ownership unattainable for many. Now moving on to the next segment.
China's whiskey makers follow Japan and take a shot at global acclaim. China's domestic whiskey industry is on the rise, led by entrepreneurs looking to follow in the footsteps of Japan's industry to find global success. Although the Chinese distilled liquor market is dominated by the traditional spirit baijiu, Western whiskey culture is gaining traction as the economy develops and more people gain experience traveling or living overseas. China imported 32,600 kiloliters of whiskey in 2023, according to the China Alcoholic Drinks Association. Meanwhile, as of 2023, there were 40 distilleries in mainland China, including those planned or under construction, with a designed distillation capacity of 80,000 kiloliters on a 100% alcohol content basis. Eyeing further growth, foreign companies and state-owned beer brewer Tsingtao Brewery are also getting into the Chinese whiskey market. Diageo, the UK owner of the whiskey brand Johnnie Walker, invested about 800 million yuan, or roughly $110 million, to open a whiskey distillery in Yunnan province last year.
India's consumer loan growth slows as wage increases disappoint. A growing number of Indians are tempering their aspirations and shunning debt-fueled lifestyle upgrades, as stunted wage growth, stubborn inflation, and high interest rates begin to bite. Their caution spells trouble for India's banks, which are now staring at a sharp slowdown in consumer credit growth, which could crimp their profits. Consumer lending became more important to Indian banks after a string of defaults by high-profile corporate borrowers. Consumer loans accounted for about 1/3 of total advances made by banks in December, up from 19% a decade ago. But a slowdown in demand for retail credit has dragged down total loan growth. Banks are also bracing for a spurt in defaults, which has forced them to be more cautious with their lending, adding to the credit squeeze. Such problems have already taken a toll on bank profits.
And now for news highlights. In each episode, Jada and I have a discussion about a recent article that has particularly captured our attention.
Today we're going to talk about how Chinese kids are growing taller, but maybe not enough for their parents.
Who are worried about the future of their children.
Yes, especially, I guess, in a highly competitive job market and for marriages.
Yeah, and it comes down to height, which would start out with an interesting statistic we have here in a graph in the story. From 1986 to 2019, the average height, or actually it's mean height, but it's in centimeters of different populations around the world, China is number one in the difference between those two periods. In 1986, it was 167.6 centimeters for boys. And it's, as of 2019, it was 175.7 centimeters.
So that's over...
just about 8 millimeters.
8
Centimeters. I'm trying to downplay it, but that's actually pretty significant.
8 centimeters, that's huge.
That's taller than me now. And and that's the big deal, is what's going on there, because you can ask the traditional questions: is it nutrition, better economic development? And the answer is yes, but also. And that but also is that parents are actively trying to make their kids taller.
Yeah, a lot of the story kind of focuses on hormone treatment, growth hormone treatment, right? A lot of doctors are being quoted in the story, and parents are seeking out these treatments, which are, really expensive, but they are willing to pay that cost for their kids. Who, again, it's we've talked about this in a different episode, but China's labor market is highly competitive right now. New graduates are having difficulty finding jobs, and also the gender difference. I guess there's way more males than females, so the marriage market. A lot of parents are worried their sons won't find a bride if they're not tall enough.
Yeah, the perception and the boots on the ground fact is that taller is better in all these factors. And not only boys, but also girls are getting taller too, we point out. So it's a general trend. But one of the things in the stories is we talked to a doctor who specializes in these things, in children's growth, and she's advocating better nutrition, exercise, and different types of exercises that can help with growth and just general health. And she's very cautious about using hormones, because obviously there's the health considerations, because you never know exactly what might be working or what they're taking, and we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And that's the other factor that you touched on there, is that the average parent in China probably can't afford that much treatment. So in order to get the high-paying jobs, to get the good marriages, you need the money in order to secure the height, so you can get more money and a better future. So it's favoring people who are already well off.
Yeah, a lot of those parents or families are already in the city, right? And people kind of in the rural areas have no access to such treatments or the money to pay for it. So again, it's kind of a cycle of inequality maybe in China. And also, so this is kind of causing infrastructure in the country to change as well, right?
Yeah, that was an interesting point, where like doorways in subways have, I think it was 180 centimeters is the top of the door. It used to be. It's now 185 centimeters, because I guess people are starting to bump their heads.
In houses, they're thinking about changing the standards for how high a roof is. I thought that was just very interesting.
The type of clothing that's sold in stores as well.
Retailers are kind of falling behind, the article says, because they're not sure if they can, if people can cover the cost of the extra materials used in, I guess, creating bigger, taller clothes. So it kind of is urging retailers to do more in that sense.
And there's one last thing that was really interesting, stuck out to me, is that there's a quote in here where somebody says the average kid in China right now is, average in height. Like, it's despite this growth, not despite this growth, but because they're matching the growth.
Yeah.
They're at the average height, but parents are still not satisfied.
Yeah. One doctor says that Chinese parents, continue to compare their child to other children, and that parents often ask why their child isn't as tall as other children. More and more parents whose children's height meet the national standard still pursue greater height. And that brings us to the close of today's episode.
We look forward to having you join up again for the next edition of the Nikkei Asia News Roundup.
Stay informed, stay curious. Until next time, I'm Jada.
And I'm Brian. See you again, and take care. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.